Yes, and there we are again with a new episode of Dance Jams. And today we are going to talk about facial expressions in or facial expression in dance. Let's see if my good friend Ton is there, of course, because there is no episode without Ton Greten. Hello, Ton. Are you there?
Hi, hi, Sean. I'm there. Yes, facial expression. That's a nice
Yeah,
one.
yeah. Facial expression or facial expressions is a bit the same, right? So that's what we're going to talk about today in this episode, right? Yeah, you and I just came back. Depends, of course, a little bit when you listen to this podcast. But in the end of May, there's always one of the biggest prestigious ballroom competition in the world. And one of the things that kind of stroke us is how many facial expressions people use in dancing. And to our opinion, it's always an opinion, right? Not always so related to the movement that they make. So that's maybe where we want to start.
That's correct, Sean. I will define it a little bit more, give a little bit more context, because Blackpool, it's not maybe the biggest festival, but the most traditional one, I would say. There are, and it's about Latin and ballroom. But we will also speak about other dance forms, not just about
Of
Latin and
course.
ballroom. Yes. And so if you are dancing hip hop or ballet or contemporary or a different dance form, then you are welcome to listen to the subject what we do today. That's facial expression. Yeah.
Yeah. So, the faces, of course, that's an important instrument, I would almost say, to convey messages. You could say emotional expressions. But it tells a story, if we keep our face always straight, that's actually also an expression, right? People can keep their face straight. We mean that we kind of hide our emotions. um, so in an art form like dance, it's a good instrument, right, to use. Um, so you can train that as much as any other body part that you have. We have 10 major body parts. Um, but facial expression is one of them, and it's kind of nice to see that there is a relationship between movements and your facial expression. What I mean with that, Ton, it doesn't always have to match, right? I can be happy in my body and maybe uh, try to be sad in my face. That doesn't always have to be the most obvious choice, but we would like to see some sort of a relationship between the two. That's where I wanted to start off. And in that
Yeah.
ballroom competition, mm, of course, we can never judge because we can never see in some people's head, but we can at least judge what we see and how we perceive it.
Yes. And the facial expression is a part of the rest, how what you said already. So we start maybe with the bigger one and
Mhm.
the bigger holistic seeing, because the facial expression is a part of it. So what is the other part? That's the body language, your gestures, and um, the use of dynamic. That's a quite important one. Some people say emotion and or they have feelings, but this we will talk later about it. So this is in my method then, or in our how we use it. The body language, the total body, head, and the face, and then you get the parts, the facial expression, and the gestures you can do with your hands, with your arms, yes, with your feet. And yeah, that's quite nice to know how you can use that. Everything is built up by muscles and bones and muscles. And this is also what can the facial expression is important to have a consistency to the body. But once you know your body language, you can also, how Sean told already, you can split it, the facial expression and the body language. You could do that, the body language without the facial expression, then, because this one you could do different, and then it is, this is not consistent anymore or symmetric, how I would say that. Yeah.
Yeah, so let's look a little bit at, a little bit more the facts, right? We have 30 muscles on each side of the face. So that's quite a lot actually for that small surface. Um, how many muscles there are in this little piece of your, if you look at us, then you can see what I did. On the left side, you have 30 muscles, and on the right side, you also have 30 muscles that actually makes your face move. And there are two sides of that movement. There are functional ways to move your face. You know, when you close your eyes up and down, we call it blinking. That is actually to keep your eyeball moist. That's a functional thing. When I talk, I need to move my jaw and my lips. That's a functional. That's a functional thing, right? And chewing. So you could see that, but um, with our face we also express often, and we make a split between a feeling and emotion a little bit later on, but we can also express how we feel. So if I'm happy, typically the corners of my mouth go up, and we call that smiling, right? So you need muscles for that too. So that's an expression of our feeling. But if I fake it, most people actually can detect if I just smile and there is actually no emotional feeling. And once again, we'll explain the difference later, but there's no emotional feeling behind it. I just smile because someone said, you need to smile on camera, yeah? See, then it looks very fake, right? It's not always clear if that's the case, but most people can detect the difference between it. And how that comes, that's a more psychological thing, but we talk about it later. Of course, and then you can divide your face into several areas. You have your upper head, you have your eye area, you have the eye, between the eyes and your mouth, which is your nose and your upper cheeks, and then of course you have your mouth and that goes then in your chin. So you can divide it,
Yes.
and if you practice a lot, each area you can actually manage to move, which also is very healthy, by the way, to keep your face really nice. Um, but you can practice that first, and dancers, I would definitely advise without any of the knowledge that we have, just practice. Can I move my eyebrows? Can I move only my right side? Can I move my left side? All these things. How can I roll my eyeballs and stuff like that, right? Some people can go really far, right? Some people can look crossed eyes, but in a very scary way. I used to practice to do cross eye the other side. Not sure if I still can do that, but it gives a weird expression when you do these things. A little bit anatomical background of that, Tom.
Yeah. Yes, Sean. A real smile, you
Yeah,
use almost all of the muscles in your face. A
yeah,
face, a fake smile, you can do it with your mouth, and even less with your muscles under your eyes. And actually, when it comes for real, from your feeling, from your thoughts, from everything together, from this two, and all the muscles are moving, yeah, then it's getting more real. And even that you can practice. Yeah.
yeah. You can practice it all. Now let's make that the small distinction. We don't go too deep in it between emotions and feelings. I think we started to do a podcast about that too. The difference between it. Emotional is always short and comes fast. Is very hard to control actually, and it's always a bodily expression, right? So if suddenly you get triggered because you're reminded that something bad happened in your life. So in my case, let's keep the podcast also really real, right? My mom died a year ago, and once in a while I see something on television and it triggers me. And before I know, I get tears in my eyes and my whole face, and that's an emotional reaction. But when Ton and I just have a podcast and we talk about my mom, I get feelings from it. It stays longer with me. I have feelings of sadness. I can talk about it, right? So that's a feeling, right? And it's important in dance development to know the distinction between the two. In normal layman terms, when we talk about things, people talk about emotion and feelings as the same thing, and that's of course perfectly fine, right? But if we really want to learn things, we need to make distinctions, right? So therefore, I made a distinction between functional use of the face, chewing my food, or using it when I'm clenching my jaw, which is the same muscle group, but it's maybe because I'm excited, or maybe maybe have another feeling. You don't always know what feeling I have, what the expression is.
Yes, the feelings, it's really stays long with you. The same with my mom, but also with other feelings. And when
Yeah,
you get some trigger from the outside, from your environment, then the feeling gives a certain reaction in your body, and you get a certain of emotion. And this is where many people throw this two. They mix these two feelings and
yeah,
emotions.
yeah, they
So
do.
we make a distinction, in a difference between the two. Of course, they need each other, and because when you have the feelings and you have not a bodily outcome of it, then this could gives you certain issue problems maybe in the future. I assume that. So the feelings is your source, and this is how I can remember it. The source and the emotions is the outcome of that feelings in your body language, in your gestures, and in a certain dynamically movement. That's what feeling and emotion does. And the feelings are quite deep, and the emotions on it can be more real than if you not fake it, because you can also fake the emotions, because you have that feeling and um, you are a liar, and then you have a different you know already you have that feeling and you want to lie, but the body language and your emotions are different. So you can practice that, and you can let it look real, what you feel different. And that's quite, yeah, quite exciting to know, if you know that.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, one thing, an emotion is not always an expression of your feeling. That's often said, but that's not actually quite true, Tom. Emotion, feeling
Mhm.
can live
Correct.
next to each other. But what you said, if you take, for instance, a drama class or acting
Yeah.
classes, they actually help you to understand that emotion, because if you had certain feelings already, it's easy to tap into them, right? So I can definitely tap into the feeling of how it was when I lost my mom, and if I can tap into it, I can see how my body react, and if I practice that enough, right, I can also use that when I want to express something. I want to express, the grief of loss of something deeply emotional. Then I can use that feeling to help me express that. If you just let it happen by chance, it very often becomes emotional, and you have almost no control over that. So that's why we talk about these things. So if so, for instance, in a dance competition, and you get on the floor and you didn't expect that you would be with the last six, and in the ballroom competitions there are always six couples in a final, and you didn't expect that.
12 people.
Yeah, 12 people, and it's six couples. Thank you for that, Ton, of course. And then you can become very emotionally overwhelmed because you're so happy that you do that, and your whole dance is with a big smile, whether it fits the movement or not. People typically react positive to that, but in fact, you could disconnect it, your what you want to express, with the feeling and the emotions that rush through your body at that moment. If you
Yeah.
can repack yourself, you find, in English we call that find your composure back. You go into the dance that you go, and you express what you want to express, or what you decided to express. And that's where the difference come in. Can you, decide what you want to express with your face? Some people say, is that fake? No, it's really deeply good connecting with your inner world and express what you want. And in art forms like dance, Ton and I at least believe that is an important factor. If you play another sport like basketball, or all that kind of things, most of the time it doesn't really matter so much how your face look.
No,
No, that,
yeah, it's also art form or
but
sport form,
it's
how you
very
can call
very
it.
artistic, yeah. But it
Yes.
doesn't matter whether you look cool in your face, or you have one
No, no,
eye
no.
closed, both eye closed.
Oh,
Yeah, I, it. But if someone bumps into you, you sometimes see that the emotions immediately come up. That's an emotional reaction, and you punch the other in the face. That's when you don't have control over your emotions there. So also in those sports, it's good to have control over it. But we're talking here about how you express it in your face, right? And all dance forms, whether it's contemporary, whether it's hip hop, whether it's classical ballet, whether it's ballroom, typically you go to some sort of storytelling. You don't have to, but very often we go through some sort of storytelling. Um, and if you tell a story, it would be kind of nice to make your face consistent with the story you tell. Or if you want to be extreme and more artistic, you on purposely do it the opposite way. But
mhm.
Ton called that in his book being symmetric or asymmetric with the story that you tell. So you,
Yes, yes,
but it's a
Sean.
choice. The keyword
Yeah,
is choice.
absolutely. Why I told you 12 dancers there? Because a couple, you cannot assume that they have the same
Mm,
expression,
no.
because 12 dancers. I speak always from a dancer and not from a couple. And because in the Latin ballroom we used to that one, and maybe also in salsa dancing, but you speak always about dancers. Why? Because everybody has a different thoughts, different feelings, different body sensation, and in sports. And now I come to the sport. You have also the facial expression when somebody um, some person has it more than the other one. Some who wins, they are quite cool, and yeah, I won. And the other one makes a party for 1 hour, feels like that, and jumping and going, and even when he expect to win, he make a total show. I saw yesterday the high jumping on the European Championship, and there was an Italian man there. And in the beginning, he was not warm enough, so he made many mistakes. And on 2 meter 29 centimeter, he that was his last approach. He goes over it, and he makes a sensation there. And lying on the floor like 5 minutes feels like 5 minutes, and he was really only screaming, and that was so beautiful to see. That was so real. And then he go continue with the jump, goes over 2 meter 31 centimeter, then 2 meter 34, and then 2 meter 37. And then he put the shoes out, he walks to the audience, he climb over the boarding, and all that emotions, facial expression, that was so real, and that powerful body sensation, that was also, I believed everything. And he get also between the jumps the stadium of 40,000 people completely still. Even nobody was coughing or something like that. So you need then to have a lot of expression in your body and in your face and in your gestures to keep the audience so still. And even for dancers, now I will make the comparison to dancers in the competitive world. Later we will do it also in the artistic world in the theater. You could do actually the same what this porter did and this high jumper. But I see this very, very seldom in our ballroom Latin scene. In the hip hop scene, a little bit more. But the facial expression is mostly, in my opinion, overdone. Too much bite on the lips. The nose are get rimpled. The front head get rimpled. When they make contact with the audience, they scream and yeah, and look to you like that. And I get sometimes a really a shock when I look to it, and I think, okay, that's but I'm used to it now, so my expression is quite neutral. I'll look to it, and yeah, that's quite exciting to see how the individual dancers on the floor how they approach it. And I would say in even in the ballroom and Latin world and in the hip hop world, uh, even also in the synchronized swimming, when they walk on, it looks everything mostly looks not real, Sean. In my opinion, I don't feel it as real and authentic. I want to see authentic people in their face and that I can believe them what they are doing there and that they take me into their story. And this is what I miss now in the ballroom Latin. Not everybody, but when you have 200 dancers there or 400 dancers, and I have to look for 10 dancers what I could believe, it's really, I have to put a lot of effort to find these dancers, these gems. I
James.
call them gems, yes,
Mm,
because they are really
mm,
so unique and special. And sometimes they're not continue to the next round, to the next, say, level. And I'm
mm,
really surprised why they are not continuing, not only from the facial expression, but also from the body language. And they are so real sometimes. I believe them. And they are so authentic and they are gone. Different reasons, maybe. Maybe the style is developing to that facial expression that it's very tense in the face, very
mm,
concentrated in the face. Um, yeah,
yeah.
I don't know what it is, but it
Mm.
takes me not from my seat that I say, yeah, I go for it.
Okay. Yeah, between the Dutch and this episode, I got actually some new thoughts around this topic, and it kept me busy.
Mm,
Because we are both trainers in this world, coaches, want to help. And I was actually talking to one of my couples who is about to dance a national championship, and they have a good chance to make the final. All two of them. I say that a little
mm,
bit as a joke, right?
mm.
So because it's a couple and it's two dancers, so both go
Yes.
to the final or none. But and I was thinking a little bit about this, and I see that that some of the dance forms have become, from a physical point of view, becomes more and more intense. And it is quite logic, with you see that also in powerlifting, and when things becomes very bodily intense, that the face is going to move with it. Now, whether you find that competitive dancing has an artistic value as well is, I think, where the difference comes in. If you don't have that, if you only talk about power and speed and skills, then you don't care so much what you want to express. But what most dancers, in my opinion, don't understand, that it also expressed in their body language. It's not only in the face. There is a congruency between body language and face, right? It just doesn't fit always the story that they want us to believe. So I think there's a lot of emotion in it because that's the emotion they feel, the power that they feel. They need to do this the whole time. Where in dance art, you make choices. You can, that's how I don't see actually that feelings are understood. I think they just let it happen. And then you have the other side, or three sides I discovered in that thinking. Ton, like you just let it happen and no understanding. And the second thing I saw is they start to mimic other people. The
Yeah.
so that's some sort of becomes then a trend. We have seen other trends in there. And then last but not least, and therefore I think that you see that a little bit more in synchronized swimming, is where the face needs to all be in some sort of the same weird robotic way.
Yeah.
Very weird. That's very weird. So very controlled, and you see that with dancers competitive. They blink with their eye, exactly at the same moment as when they did the dance before. Let me explain here. In big competitions, they do multiple rounds of dancing, so they do multiple times the same dance, and they do exactly the same facial expression at the same moment. That is also really weird. There is the spontaneity. So those three levels I start to see it on. Just one, there's no control over it. They let it just happen, which sometimes could be attractive. If you see that someone's really happy, but hmm, you could take that a little bit further. That is more connected to the emotion, I think. And then the second layer I said is mimicking of what they see other people do. So it becomes some sort of a weird trend, and it spread like wildfire in that world, Latin ballroom dancing. And then the third one is it if it's super controlled, where it's exactly the same always at every moment, and even as a couple they look exactly the same, and if it's a formation, then the whole formation have exactly the same facial expression, then it looks actually a little bit odd. You see that in synchronized swimming a little bit, quite always, quite often, actually, I must say. So that's
Yes.
what do you think, Ton? That's what that was I
Yeah. I have to adjust something.
Yeah.
So actually, in the ballroom Latin world, but also in the hip hop or other dance forms, doesn't matter which one you are,
Hmm.
and you could go from round to round. What do you want to express from round to round? Do you have a story? Do you want to express this round the same like the other one, or you don't think about it and you don't feel about it? You feel, of course, but you didn't be aware of it, and then you approach every round maybe from the physic a little bit more, but emotionally wise inside that's not possible because that's a feeling. But what you want to express emotionally with your body language, with your facial expression, that's quite also an issue if you want to make the difference between one dancer and the other dancer. What, how you want to walk on that floor, which speed you want to use, where you want to focus with your eyes, to which point you want the attention, etc. I would make stories about that one. Also in the swimming, I would also do that, and also in the pole dancing or whatever dance form you also do. It's quite important to have something in your head what you want to express with your facial expression and your body expression.
Yeah,
That's
or at
quite
least,
important.
yeah, at
Yeah.
least, that is the fourth layer that we miss, actually, is it feels like there is no thought, no premeditated thought behind how to move the face. So,
Yeah.
with not so skillful dancers, we sometimes see that when there is only attention to the feet and legs and the arms, they flip or they flap everywhere. That's
Mhm.
actually the same, and trainers and coaches typically immediately work on that. But very remarkable, at least that was Ton's and I conclusion, is that if it comes to the movement of the face, it feels there has not been so much attention to it, as on the other parts in the body. And to make, and the story could help. It doesn't always have to be a story, but it feels like there is actually no choices. They just let it happen.
Yeah, I think at least you need to have an idea there what you
Yeah,
want to express.
I think so too.
This this is a professional approach of a dancer if you are high developed and have a long experience. And some people I could see that even they are
Yeah,
older.
yeah,
There was a competition there for seniors. They were over 50, and I was quite impressed in their facial expression. Not all of them. There were about, I think, maybe 100 competitors, dancers, and say 50 couples. But I said already, each person feel different, think different, express themselves differently. And if you want to express the same what your partner express, that would be also quite weird. So it has to be different, but you could choose to do the same and feel the same. But I don't know what the story is behind it and the idea behind it. But this is a professional approach to approach your dance already from the beginning, how you want to approach it in your body language expression, in the facial expression, in your gestures. That's quite important for yourself. Also, if you don't know it by yourself, how I must know it as a perceiver. And when I watch to you and listen to you, probably also how I must know it. So I get also thoughts and feelings about it, and this has be not have to be the same, but it would be nice if you have in your head and in your feelings already an idea, and I would see that on the floor as exactly the same. That would be really super. But when it not is, it's also okay. But when I speak later with you and you would say, yes, this was what I wanted to express for my body, for my face, and in this situation, and I look, yes, I saw this situation, and I thought this you wanted to express and to feel,
yeah,
and and yeah, and then it gets on the same level, and then a dancer like, wow, that's exactly what I meant to do, and wanted to do, and you could perceive that and you feel that also and saw that also. Now that's really fantastic if you can reach that level of
yeah,
communication.
definitely. So I do think, by the way, Tom, that as a couple, you can try to express the same feeling, if that fits the dance, but it would always be expressed differently because you're a unique individual. So you and I can decide both to say, okay, let's express, let's say, joy here. I like joy, but if we try to say, well, joy always needs to be with both eyebrows up done. So let's so you try to match that. That could be a little bit funny, in a dance. You and I could do that. And you see, actors do that sometimes when they actually mimic their face, just as a things. But if you do that a little bit more spontaneous, then it's different. So where I think this also comes from, Tom, and it's a discussion that we do in another podcast. I think um, in the at least that world of competitive dancing, there's one overused word, and that is you need to express confidence. You need to look,
Mm.
you need to be confident, you need to be confident, you know because then you're believable. But it's only one of the things that you can express. And I don't think that that's a very limited way of teaching, right? So we I say, as a mental coach, let me do a little bit promotion of my own work, is all emotions are welcome. All emotions are welcome, and practice to express all the emotions that there are. And here is the weird thing. If I ask people how many emotions are there, right? They cannot give a good answer. They don't have an answer for that, right? So if I then ask them, can you give me a list? I don't even ask them to make a list between the difference between emotions and feelings. That's even more complicated, right?
Oh
I said,
yeah, yeah,
write
absolutely.
write down for me the numbers of emotions that you know, right? And it's shocking if I do that with couples. So maybe our listeners can do that then for themselves before I give you the answer what it is. Eight, right? So if it's shocking that people come with very limited list of emotions, so that for me indicates that they actually don't think about it so much, right? Does that make sense? Um,
Yes,
and there
yes.
are studies around it: one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, 8 times four, so that's 32. So only from a psychological point of view, most people like me, we already distinguish 32 different emotions, and you can practice literally to express each emotion. That's why in my study I made that one of my points of attention, because it has a lot to do with your mental being, and you can embrace each of those emotions, right? You can embrace them and try to express them, and there is no right and wrong in it. There is literally no right and wrong. You just have to think what Ton said. Is there a story that backs it up? Maybe you want to do something completely different than what expected. There is how you play with it and how you fill it in is a lot. But if we only talk about, you need to be confident, you need to be sure and show, or you need to be always happy, like, that's a modern thing, you always need to be happy. There's nothing wrong with being not happy. When my mother died, it would be right to think about wrong about happiness. Let me grieve for a little bit and embrace that also. It's an important emotion. And that's Ton, where it becomes a little bit now. So there are 32 or 24. That's a little bit where people a little bit debate, you know but even that, even if it's only 24, most people cannot even come to the half of it. I always have to help them.
No,
I always
yeah.
have to help them, saying, oh, yeah, so I could be happy. Okay. But is it only happy? Oh, what about joy then? Okay. Yeah. I don't know the difference between happy and joy. Well, I can help you teach it, but I would try and discover, can I express the difference between happy and joy? Do I feel the difference between happy and joy? What is it? You can read about it. Does that always mean that your audience sees the difference between happy and joy? That's in the beginning not so important, but try to
Mhm.
find the nuance, right? There is a
Yes.
difference between anger and rage, right? If you didn't learn that, and I wrote about that in my book, where we basically went with two emotions in a family. We either were happy or we were completely angry, and you still see that in my family, that they flip flop that. Something goes against what they will, they immediately become angry, right? There is no nuance being it. So it also already starts as a child. You have to learn the nuances between emotions, because if there's a difference between when your cat dies and when your mom dies. There's a
Mhm.
different feeling. I mean, I am not a judge what you should feel, by the way. Maybe you feel it, maybe for you it's worse. If your cat die, that's not me. Don't take this wrong. But there's often a different feeling how you express that. And knowing those emotions and knowing how to express them in your face and your body, by the way, and that becomes an art form. And it can
Yeah.
only happen by practice. And I think what you and I saw, Ton, is, I think if they are coached on facial expressions, it's only one, and that is be confident. Go on. You need to be
Yeah.
on. And
But
does that make
but
sense, Ton?
yes, but to be confident, if you have options, you have a choice. If you have a choice, you can choose from the your personality makes your confidence in your options and your choices you make at that moment. Because if you dance 1 minute, you have maybe hundreds of moments in it, and in every moment you make a choice from your instinct, intuition, from your feelings, from your how you say, from your DNA, from your chromosome, from everything what you have, and from your character. And if you have experience and you can make that choices and from that options, but if you not have options, then it gets already a challenge to choose. If you cannot choose and the teacher have to choose, it's not you. So one way to grow is try to discover that. If you can discover what you want to be on the floor and what you want to become on that floor, then you are one step further than if you don't know that. And this is where the teachers make their money on, if they have private lessons or the groups lessons, is to tell the people what they must do.
Well, I don't know about that, Tom, but
No, but that this is what I assume, Sean.
yeah, that's an
And
assumption. So,
yeah, assumption. Yes, that's an assumption. Because when I see 400 dancers and I see 380 dance like machines in their face, then I ask myself what the where they come that from? Because they have
yeah,
all of them. They have a personal trainer.
yeah, but that could be it. Could be that what I told you about the 24 emotions that there are, or some people say 32. Well, but it could be that people don't know that. Could be that they don't agree with us, right? They could all be
Mhm.
kind of things. I had my own couples in the competitions. I must honestly say that they didn't got to the level where this was in there. It comes all with practice and skills, right? So yeah, what I do see, and is that there's not a lot of attention to this part of what we do. Whether that's conscious, whether they say, we just don't agree with Ton and Jean, we like all these phases, you know, hey, maybe that's their choice. I I suspect, I suspect that it is more into the knowledge of that, and I suspect that it is very much coached on the motivate. They call it motivational side, right? Only on the motivation, push to it. So, and that spurs one type of emotion, and that's not by choice. What you and I talk about is you can actually decide up front, every round, even in the moment yourself, if you're very skilled, what is it what I want to express at that moment. Um, that's the thing that I don't see. Now we could conclude, but there are a lot of assumption there that just people don't do that. They only look at movement. For me, also one dynamically, huh? Very, very
Yes.
limited dynamic. And if the dynamics become very limited, then very logic is then also that the emotions become very limited.
Yes, the
Um,
body language gets also limited,
exactly. Yeah.
and the
So
gestures also.
impressive
And
at some point, but, from a power and
mm,
speed point of view, I mean, absolutely
yes,
impressive. But if that's where the competition is about, then I probably lose interest very quickly. Uh, yeah, because the variety of dance is can be, it's a choice too. The variety of can be much bigger, and yeah, we didn't see that, to be honest, so much.
no, I would. Yes, I would start first maybe with Darwin because he was the one who was started first. How many different facial expressions we had, and he put some pictures there. Say he made the pictures in Japan and showed them in South Africa, and then he tried to find how many facial expression people would recognize. from that. And they did this with babies already, with small children, and they did it also in Europe, to South Africa, to America, and he showed everywhere these pictures, and he did his research about that one, and he came to six, like happiness, anger, fear, surprise, aversion, and sadness. And if you would play already with this sixth one, what he discovered, you could put even more, how Sean told. That's also possible. But I would start with the six. And which one, you do it in the mirror and you practice that. And also with your body language and the facial expression, that they're coherent. I don't know how you say this in
Coherent,
English.
yeah. Co-
Coherent? Yes. And this I would practice first. And maybe you can also practice this with the person in front of you, and you practice that, and they have to recognize that. But try not always to do it with the same person, because after a while they recognize it. So try to also in a groups lesson to practice this. And it's quite funny also. Um, to do this test and practicing makes a lot of fun to do that. And yeah, that would be a small
That would be
advice, maybe.
that would be
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, Darwin was he was one of the first to express to look at that. There was another researcher, and they were friends, by the way.
Mm.
And a friend, I forgot his name, but he was also he was a psychologist, and how do you call it? Someone who studies biology. And that Frenchman already made a distinction between 60 different emotional,
Ooh, ooh, ooh.
yeah, 60. So, like I said, if you can keep it to 24, 32, but Ton made it even, simpler, so to speak. But good, if you keep it to the six main fields, I typically talk about eight main fields, but doesn't really matter if you can already make a distinction between a couple of them. That would already be a lot, right? That's let's start there. Those two guys tried to make they tried to prove that there is a link between animals and human beings because they have the same facial expression. Now we can all have our own thoughts around that. um, I'll give you my thought around that at another time, um,
I
because
have
I don't.
something funny in my head, Sean. This is
Yeah,
this is why
yeah,
the dogs are lookalikes, mostly from the how you
yeah. They
say,
say
the
that too.
owners.
The owners, yeah. Well, on an emotional level, you see that's a spontaneous reaction. A dog, if he feels threatened, he immediately
Yeah.
shows his teeth, right? Um, so you have that. There are more research even to today how that's even trauma related. So in dance, we should look at the emotion, but therefore we should also look at the feelings. And it's very unlikely that animals have feelings the way human beings do. So we also have
No,
expressions of a
totally
feeling.
different reaction.
Totally,
Even my
totally, yeah, because we have
yes,
a different thought process. But
my,
that's for another thing. Do know that those researchers try to prove that there is a connection between animals and human beings, which is um, which is okay, that's up for debate. But there is a newer research, because this goes back a few hundred years almost. There's a newer research, Peter Levine, who actually also researched these things, the emotions, how immediately you express that, and how things are stored in your body. Just read a little bit about it. That's what Ton and I try to see. To read a little bit about it, and you will get different ideas how you can express these things. And then you can make choices how you express these things. None of Ton and me said this is how you need to express yourself. We just
no,
say,
no,
can you make
absolutely not.
more, yeah, can you make nuances in how you express things? Um, if you, for instance, let's keep it very classical. um, Latin American dancing in the ballroom world goes over five dances. In a very traditional way, teachers would say they have five different emotions. Okay, let's take that then as an example, right? Can you already do that? I often did not see the difference between the face in a samba and a jive. So by not that's not my choice. I'm just taking the words of what other people sometimes say. They have different emotions. Okay, can you at least try to do that? Right? That would already be a nice assignment. But Ton and I were sitting and watching this competition, and to our amazement, we did not really see a difference between one dance and the other, and that can actually not be. That's not even between in one dance, and
No, no. One dance is 1.5 minutes, Sean, and you could not say. They say cha cha is cheeky. Then you have 1.5 minute
cheeky face.
cheeky. No, 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 no. It's or that's not possible. So you have to see it as a point of a human being that all these dancers have a character and they have a certain style, and inside that certain style, they expect a certain behavior and body language and facial expression. But still, there is variation in it, and you go from moment to moment and what you want to express in that body language, gestures, and facial expression. So, I give you one example in the contemporary world. When you are in a theater, sometimes I look to dancers there. It looks like they have totally no fun there. They do their choreography, they do their tasks, what the choreographer asks, but I don't really feel it like real sometimes. And even at the end, they get standing ovation, mostly, not always. But when you get a standing ovation because you are so famous company, but I didn't believe it, and it looked like you study it well and you did your job because dancing is then a job for you. Then I wouldn't stand for that one. I stand because people touch me. I stand because I enjoyed it to watch to it, and this is for each person differently. I stand because I believe them. I feel their passion. I feel their um, desire to want a piece, put it on the floor. It's like Maya Carey sings what was it, Christmas, her Christmas song for maybe 10,000 times, and 10,001 she do it like a job, but actually she must sing it like it the first time was, with that passion and that enjoyment, not like a job. And sometimes in a theater I see people dance like a job, and it's not a job, it's passion, it's an artist form, it's it needs everything what it's in there. But maybe the I don't I assume that the choreographer maybe this one or the company, but I would never stand for it. And if they get a standing ovation and get zero smile on the face from the 20, maybe one or two dancers, then I think here is something really strange. Because when I would get a standing ovation, the audience or the perceiver are quite happy, they get that, and the dancers don't give a reaction on it. That's quite weird, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, of course, it's audience. You're an audience, and the reason why you stand or not stand is all, it's quite personal.
Yeah.
I would say, but I make a difference between keeping your face on purpose blank, right, like in straight form, and do that consistency, which could gives a different emotion to the audience, and it could fit the story, right? But if it's just empty, there is no thought behind it, not even behind the quiet face, then it's quite odd, and it feels like someone is just doing it because someone else told them to do it. I think the true professionals, and you don't have to be a professional to be a professional, they do it every time with full dedication, and so that has to have an expression. But if you don't have an expression, that also tells a story. Tom, that might not be the story that you want to convey, but it
No, no,
also
no.
tells a story. If you're an angry face, that's I think the other side that people um don't see. They say, oh, you need to have more non-verbal communication. No, you cannot have more verbal communication. You always have non-verbal communication. It might not be the communication that you want, but do know that
Or
you
what I
always,
expect. No,
or
I
what you
expect.
expect, what you
Yes,
want,
yes, yes.
well, what you want to express. The
Yeah, yeah.
receiver, you cannot control the receiver. You
Yes, yes.
can only control. So do know as a dancer or as an artist that no matter what you do, you always express something. But the
Yeah.
question is, do you make choices what you want to express, and do you express what you want to express? So those are
Yes.
also two different things, right?
Yes.
Uh,
That I want to give you an example, Sean. This weekend I had my theater performance with our students, our children, our dancers, and I said to them, when the audience come into the door, you are lying in the hall, on the floor, on the stairs. It was about 40 dancers, and the audience have to go over them or through them, because I had two persons standing there just watching to each other, and they passed them really in between. And I thought, okay, this is how I want to approach the art, that the audience get a certain feeling already, and the face was really neutral or a smile in it, but it was fixed already. And they had 20 minutes, the audience, to come in and to go to their seats. And after 2 minutes or 3 minutes, I clap, and they change in slow motion the position and also the expression. And then they keep it again for 2 minutes long, like a statue. Audience liked that already, and they were smiling. Oh, this is strange. What's happening here? And so they had already the attention. And at the end, when the audience sit, and I had also the curtains open, they were also on stage with certain poses, lying, standing, etc., not looking to the audience. I had one girl there. That's a really funny video. She stand on the seat and just watch to one or two persons. What one focus that was really intense, and then I clap like no, and then I said, "Now make noise," and they make all the students make. I'm here in the theater, and story, story, story. Everybody was talking how audience this normally do, and the strange thing was the audience was quiet,
mhm.
and the dancers were talking all loud, because I had also Ukrainian dancers there. They were also talking, and then I clapped 4 times. Then they go to the stage. Then they did how you call this in English? This they no the hand they put their hands in the air and wave with it, and the students had to say, "Have a lot of pleasure." And at the end, I did the same. After the dance I put 4 minutes or 3 minutes longer. They go again to the audience, put the same. I clap again. They go again, put their hands in the air, said, "Thank you, audience, that you have watched to us. We are quite happy." So I let them make contact with the audience or public on a different way, and that they approach the art on a different way.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I like that. I like that. very much. Well, whether I like it or not is not so important. But I
No,
mean,
you make contact with
you
the
make contact.
audience.
But that's,
Yes.
I think that's another area we can definitely talk about. But we are running over an hour already,
Yeah.
Tom. But but that's clearly our opinion. There are, you can divide dance the way we often see it in really two big categories, right? One is social dancing, right? You dance with you and your partner or with a group of people. That's it. You do it socially. You do it together, and then you dance, and then you dance for an audience, and then it becomes a performance art. When there is
Yeah.
audience, when you consciously dance for an audience, where it's for a more sportive side, where it's for an artistic side, you have to be aware of what you want to convey to the audience. If you don't care and that's your choice, that's a choice too, right? But you cannot expect from the audience just to accept what you do, right?
Yeah.
You have to have an idea, like you have an idea how you want to interact with the audience. And I have
Yeah.
no judgment over what you choose, but the
No, no,
point
no.
is that I think very often there's no choice. There's no people don't make a choice in that. Um, One of my teachers called that the strand of the medium, and one of the strand of the medium is audience. It's the audience that you can include in your dancing, even as a competitive dancer in the ballroom world, and that's the huge part that you and I missing. It
Yes, yes. Uh,
is yeah,
the plan, how to approach that
yes,
floor,
yeah.
how to
There's
use that
no
facial expression,
yeah, none.
that body language. And this I tried on this way with the children. For them,
Yeah,
they
very
were
good.
scary in the
Very good.
beginning,
Yeah,
and I thought it's quite funny,
yeah,
but also scary. But once they did it, were really more released, and also the audience. So this is one way to make contact
yeah,
with it. And the stage manager do about 1,000 shows a year, and maybe already 30 years. And I said, have you seen somebody make doing it like this to make contact with the audience? He said, no, this was the first time.
yeah.
And I saw already a lot. So try to be creative. And we have a podcast about creativity.
Activity.
Yes, listen to that one. How you can make contact, and or to be creative and find solutions for that one, because it's quite important. Don't forget, if audience pay for a ticket for you or for
Yeah,
other people, deliver something, and
yeah,
not deliver only physical activity. Because yeah, nice, fine, I can enjoy that one too, but it's more than that.
yeah. It's more than that, and I bet if you would do that for for if everyone would do what your group did now, then it becomes the normal, and then it loses its
Yes.
effects too. So it
Yeah,
has
yeah.
to be. But and then some people think, oh, do I have then to include the audience? That's a choice. I mean, how you include,
Yes.
but be aware that there's an audience, and it's it's one of the things that I start to see completely different when I start to study this. It is a performance art, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
if it's a performance art, there is audience. And sometimes I hear also my students say, "No, Jean, these emotional expression, I do it. I do it when it's real." I said, "It's always real. I mean,
Mhm.
no one says that you have to dance for 2,000 people. If I am sitting there and and I just say, dance for me, I'm not your coach now, I'm just audience, it's also real. It
Yes,
is
yes,
that
yes.
so it is practice, 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 and it is also study and understanding all these nuances that we talked about. Not an
Yes.
easy topic, Ton. I definitely
No, no.
say that, at least not in our ballroom and Latin world. That's what we often talk about. If you talk about, stage art, then this drama, all these kind of things, these topics are actually quite normal. You go to a drama class, which you and I would strongly advise to dancers, take some drama classes, take some acting classes,
Mhm.
or find teachers who went into this topic a little further, or
It's
just grab
holistic.
a book. go to the internet, you know, do
Yeah,
something
the
with it.
World Wide Web.
Yeah.
Don't listen to our podcast, but don't believe us.
Yeah, I said 60 emotions by this French guy. Jean says 24. Some people said 32. Ton says, let's keep it simple. Let's do Darwin and start with six. What is your path, Darwin? But it is more than one. I can guarantee you that. And
Yes,
there's more
yes,
than two. I can guarantee you that too. So, Ton,
yeah.
we are at the end of our podcast. This,
Yes.
big topic. Um, Definitely something we need to come back to.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, but we have so many topics on our list,
we
Sean.
do,
I
we
have
do, we do.
still 52 topics on our list, still
Still, and then
in
still,
English, and
and
that's one
Dutch.
year of podcast, Sean. If you
I know.
when we would put them every week, that's 1 year of podcast every week, one episode. Wow, that
Yeah,
is incredible.
that is. But in the meantime, we also connected it today, maybe a little bit less, but we can always connect it to the method that we believe in and develop, and it's still in development. It's called the Gem Method. Tom wrote an
Mm,
excellent book about it. And you can find a lot of these things as a starting point in there. And
yeah.
it hopefully stimulates you to study and research yourself as well. Knowledge goes always before everything.
Yes,
Um,
and find the ideas out of it, but you will learn nothing if you not will do it. So
for
it's
sure.
really
Yeah,
necessary to work practical with
yeah,
it, with your own ideas,
yeah,
not just
yeah.
with my ideas. It can give you a direction, but find your
Idea.
idea, find
Don't,
your direction.
don't look for our approval. That's not important at all, whether we approve it or not. It's just to
Mm.
stimulate you to do, think a little bit out of the box, be creative, dare to be you. That's that. But having said that, is the end of this podcast. On, I'm
Yes, Sean.
sure next time we have another interesting topic. I thank you as always for being a good buddy and talk about these things.
Yes. Thanks, Sean. That's vice versa.
Yes. All right. With that, we talked today about facial expressions in dance, right? Or facial expression in dance. Plural is maybe nicer, but anyhow, this is how we put it. Don't forget, we are always. You can always find us on Spotify, Dance Dash Jams, or Apple Dance Dash Jams. We have our own YouTube channel with the same name, obviously, and our website jam.dance/podcast, and you can of course also find us on Facebook. Ton, with that I say to you bye bye,
Goodbye until next time.
and of course to our listeners and viewers too. I'm sorry for that. Bye bye.